Good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, let me confess something. I don't have the credentials of a Nobel Prize winner or the wisdom of a spiritual guru. I'm just a young professional still figuring life out. And that tells me something when I'm still learning that the world is entirely different. When you're still learning, you see the world with fresh eyes. And what I see around me in society, in technology, in the way we think, tells me one thing. If we don't challenge the ordinary will trap us. So, have you ever been so absolutely sure of something only to realize you're spectacularly wrong? Let me answer that. Being wrong isn't wrong actually. It's about being curious. Curiosity is where extraordinary beginnings happen. And Richard Feynman, the famous physicist, put it across beautifully through a simple story about a bird. His father, once while looking at the bird, pointed and said, "Do you know what that bird is? It's a brown-throated thrush. In Spanish, it's called something. In Italian, another. In Portuguese, yet other name. But what did you learn about the bird? So, you learned how people in different places call it. But did you actually learn anything about the bird? Absolutely nothing. Instead, he told him, let's look at the bird itself and see what it's doing. Because that's what really matters. Richard's dad never just gave him the name. He knew the difference and understood the difference between knowing the name of something and truly knowing it. And that to me isn't just about birds. In fact, it's about life itself. Everything becomes fascinating when approached with curiosity. Information is everywhere, but wisdom is truly knowing what to do and when to apply it. I truly believe this. The real learning happens in the arena of life. This is the true essence of real education. But here's the problem, right? In our quest to understand the world, invisible barriers cloud our judgment and limit our perspective. The first of these biases is so dangerous that it makes us reveal successes and failures in a very different way. During the World War II, Navy researchers studied the returning aircrafts and suggested adding armor to the places where the hits are being the most. It seems logical, right? Protect where the planes are being hit the most. But mathematician Abraham Wald identified a flaw. He argued that armor should be placed in the areas where the returning planes showed no damage, because hits in those areas had proved fatals for the aircrafts that never made it back. A logical error where we focus on successes that pass through a filter rather than the failures that didn't. Think of it in another way. People admire old forts, monuments, and temples and say, oh, they built such beautiful and strong structures back in those days. But what we forget is those thousands of old, crumpled buildings that crumpled long ago. They always give us they don't really give us a realistic opinion of the past. The survivors always tend to give us a distorted picture of the past. As I observe, in society and media, it always showcases winners, not the countless attempts that failed. This creates an illusion that challenges are easier than they appear and fuels unrealistic optimism, as I rightly said. So let me ask you this, and also tell you this. Chasing dreams is important, but don't let survivorship bias blind you. Always ask, am I considering the successes or the winners that always pass through the filter and always considered ignoring the failures? That's when you'll find the right answer. Survivorship bias teaches us not to be fooled by what we see. But there's another hidden force that we completely misunderstand, that silently shapes our wealth, our careers, and our future as well. Let's take a hypothetical country with an inflation rate of 5%. Most people shrug it off saying, oh, it's only 5%. But what if I told you that in 14 years, your money would be worth half of what it is today? The danger suddenly becomes clear. As Al Bartlett once said, the greatest shortcoming of human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. Albert Einstein put it even more bluntly. The power of compounding is the most powerful force in the universe. To illustrate the power of exponential growth, imagine placing one grain of rice on each square of a chessboard and subsequently doubling it as you move to the next square. We all know that a chessboard has 64 squares. By the final square, you'd need enough rice to feed the people present on planet Earth as of today, but for thousands of years. The same principle of compounding is what explains Warren Buffett's fortune. Out of his $135 billion net worth, $130 billion was made after he turned the age of 65. He began investing at the age of 10, and by 30, he just had $1 million. His skill was investing, but his secret was time, giving compounding decades to work. But the takeaway for all of you is this. Exponential growth and compounding may seem counterintuitive in the short run, but over the long run, its effects become astronomical. A small base given enough time can multiply and grow beyond your imagination. Understanding exponential growth is essential, but here's another counterintuitive truth about success that most people miss entirely. In business and investing, and frankly life as well, outcomes are rarely distributed evenly. A small number of successes often account for the majority of the results. Experts call them tail events. Take Amazon for instance. In 2018, Amazon contributed 6% of S&P 500's growth, the total return. But inside Amazon, it wasn't dozens of wins that drove its success. Its growth was largely driven by just two tail events: Amazon Prime and Amazon Web Services. Together, these two successes generated billions. They didn't just succeed, they completely overshadowed Amazon's failures. They made up for them. Do you guys remember the infamous Fire Phone? Yeah? Do you guys remember the Amazon travel agencies? Probably not. But there are other dozens of failures, other successful experiments, if I can call them, that most of us have never even heard about. After the disastrous release of the Amazon Fire Phone, when shareholders expected an apology from Jeff Bezos, this is what he said. If you think that's a big failure, we're working on much bigger failures right now. This is just the beginning. The Amazon Fire Phone is going to make the entire scope look like a tiny little blip. Bezos understood the math. It's okay if most bets fail, because the rare, extraordinary successes of a tail event can cover up for the entirety. The takeaway is simple but powerful. You don't need many wins. You need the right win. Even great leaders make mistakes and do wrong decisions half the time. But that doesn't matter, because the small breakthroughs, again, they cover up for the entirety. And that, according to me, is the secret to growth, innovation in any field. All these principles aren't just simple theories. They can transform the way we perceive things. But now, I would like to shift our focus to the story of a resource-poor island that became one of the world's most prosperous nations. Do you remember the time when a prime minister cried on international television? Well, I don't. In 1965, after Singapore was expelled from Malaysia, its founding leader wept because he was humiliated on the world stage because he did not know how to feed his people or build a future. At that time, most of Singapore's population lived in poverty and half of them were illiterate. At that time, as I told, the situation seemed hopeless. But Lee Kuan Yew, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, made bold decisions. Since Singapore was surrounded by the sea, he chose to build a port, and invited ships traveling between China and the West to make Singapore a hub for handling bulk cargo. He even reached out to Shell to set up an oil refinery here. He launched massive housing projects that not only sheltered its people, but also created jobs. He also realized Singapore needed something more important. He made sure it gave tax certainty and not tax breaks. This resulted in Singapore becoming one of the world's most politically stable countries, offering fast and reliable courts. This attracted multinational companies to base their arbitration and investment funds to pour in their funds. But he didn't stop here. He went on to build world-class universities such as the National University of Singapore and the Nanyang Technological University, resulting in investments into the education of the future. Today, the results speak for themselves. Malaysia's per capita GDP is at about $13,000, whereas Singapore's is over $90,000. Talk about playing the long game, right? Two countries that started equal, but one country ending on a stronger note. I don't mean simple stronger note, 7 times stronger. And the takeaway I'd like to leave with all of you is this. The story of Singapore is a powerful reminder that when a country is in moments of despair and humiliation, a leader, a democratized leader, can transform a nation. On a personal level, it shows that when you're at your lowest, the only way forward is up. If Singapore could transform its nation from despair to prosperity in just one generation, what about us Indians? Every year, we are confronted with heartbreaking headlines. Mumbai submerged after just 500 millimeters of rain in 84 hours. Newborn babies dying in government hospitals for the want of basic medical care. A bridge in Bihar collapsing even before it's inaugurated. Cities grinding to a halt, lives being lost, dreams shattered. And every time, our instinct is to point fingers at politicians. But here's the hard truth. India is not failing because of a handful of leaders. India is failing because of us. Let me be very more blunt. One of the penalties you pay for not participating in politics, not real standing for the elections, but participative democracy, is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. Look around you. Isn't that exactly what's happening? Because we, the citizens of this beautiful republic, have stopped behaving like citizens. We have become passive subjects, just ranting on social media, but never demanding accountability. And who is a subject? A subject is a person who, when 30 people died due to a bridge collapse in Bihar, never tries to question the present-day leaders. Instead, he blames the past. Aurangzeb, Nehru, Gandhiji, and so on. This isn't accidental. Every effective government knows how to create its enemies. Sometimes foreign, Canada, China, US, you all would have seen on news. Sometimes internal, religion, caste, language. And while we fight these imaginary battles, the real issues, transparency, infrastructure, education, gets buried. Look at your watches. It isn't measuring time. It's measuring tragedies. According to the National Crime Records Bureau's 2023 report, a rape is committed every 18 minutes. A murder is committed every 17 minutes. A child is abducted or kidnapped every 8 minutes. Every tick of this watch shows a life altered, a family broken, and a society questioned. But this must change. As much as we love to see our economy grow, Let's equally focus on the safety and dignity of our people, because this wins their trust in a much better way. Support those who raise their voices, step into public administration, step into politics, not for power, but for progress. Because if rational people stay silent, the corrupt will rule, billions will be looted, and we will all quietly drown in the floods that could have been prevented. We have a beautiful republic, a democracy built on immense sacrifice. We must behave as citizens, alert, responsible, and united. The greatest act of citizenship, according to me, is this: to hold the powerful accountable. But holding the powerful accountable isn't just enough. It is to hold ourselves accountable as well. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't this too overwhelming? What can I alone do? But let me tell you, it starts with our choices and what control we have over what drives us. Here's something absolutely crazy about the Indian consumers that almost makes me sick, and it's so ironic. Do you know how many demat accounts are there in India? 18.5 crores, approx. Do you know how many people had their account on Dream 11, the fantasy sports platform? More than 20 crores. That means people are ready to risk their money on an app where the chances of losing are higher than invest the same money in the stock market in order to build wealth for the future. Why, you may ask? It all comes down to one thing: dopamine. Dopamine is the reason why marriages have turned into hookups, why sports has turned into bet, why news has shifted from sensationalism, from truth to sensationalism and other things. So, only true citizenship and the true human responsibility I perceive here is self-control. If you want a country that thrives and a citizenship that matters, I want all of you to master yourself. Businesses take in the energy we give, right? So my closing wish is very simple. Believe like a child that you may get what you want. I find adults are way too skeptical. So the formula is very simple. Plan like an adult, believe in them like a child, and live like a citizen of a future worth building. Every person in this room has a choice: either accept the ordinary or escape it. You can always go back to your old way of thinking. It will wait for you, unchanged. But if you even take one bold step forward today, you'll realize wonders will begin to unfold. And this is how the ordinary ends and the extraordinary begins.